लैलतुल क़द्र वमा अदराका मा लैलतुल क़द्र लैलतुल क़द्र खैरुम मिन अल्फ़ि शहर तनज़्ज़लुल मलाइकतु वर्रूहु फ़ीहा बिकुल्लि अम्र सलामुन हिय हत्ता मतलइल फ़ज्र सलवात अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। खुशनुदी इमाम ज़माना बुलंदतर सलवात अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है। क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है। जिसकी दहलीज़ पे झुकते थे अंबिया सारे, तूने उस दर को जलाया है। क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है। जो भी बोले कुरान बन जाए, मेरे बाबा की बात का लोगो, उसको हिज़ियान का सुना कर गासिबे मिंबर ने देख तहरीर को जुटलाया है। क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है। हाय पहना के यरसन यसरब में ये पिराते रहे अली को तेरे, तेरी सनद के टुकड़ों को फातिमा तेरी ने संग हसनैन के उठाया है। क्यों मुसलमान तूने ज़हरा को सताया है, ऐसा बदला लिया मुबाहिल का, कलमा गोने तेरी बतूल से यूं, मुझको है ज़ख्म दिए ऐसे बेहया फासिक ने, हाथ पहलू पे मेरा आया है, क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है। देख कर हो गए हैरान वहाँ, फातिमा की ज़ईफ़ी देख अली, दिन से आ रात हो गए थे, सैयदा रोई, मुझको तू कह के बुलाया है, क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है, जिसकी दहलीज पे झुकते थे अंबिया सारे, तूने उस दर को जलाया है, क्यों मुसलमान तूने बादे मोहम्मद ज़हरा को सताया है। बड़ मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
Jazakallah, Brother Hassan. One more last salawat for him. At this time, I'd like to invite Brother Faizan for recitation with a loud salawat.
और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु। एक और दुरूद भेजिए मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। ख्वाब में ज़हरा ने बाबा को जो देखा एक शब, खुश हुई पास मैं बाबा के, चली जाऊंगी अब हाय रोने लगी बच्चों का ख्याल गया जा, ये खबर ही ना हुई। पास हुसैन आ गए कब, अरे अम्मा ढूंढेंगे कहाँ, याद अगर आएंगी हम तो मर जाएंगे गर्रा, चली जाएंगी। माँ ने रोकर, माँ ने जब ये सुना, दिल तड़पने लगा। प्यार करते हुए फातिमा ने कहा, देखो हुसैन, मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते। देखो हुसैन, मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते। देखो हुसैन, माँ किसी की हमेशा रही है कभी, मैं भी बिछड़ी थी अम्मा से बचपन में ही। माँ के जाने का दुख तो बहुत था, मगर देखो मैं भी तो बिन माँ के जीती रही। तुमको मेरी कसम, तुमसे बिछड़े जो हम, जब्त करना है ले माँ की कसम। देखो हुसैन, मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते। देखो हुसैन, मुझको मालूम है मेरे नूरे नज़र, प्यास लगती है तुमको बहुत रात भर। अरे प्यास सहने की आदत भी डालो ज़रा, प्यासा रहना पड़े कब कहाँ क्या खबर। प्यास तुमको लगे और ना पानी मिले, ये दुआ है कि वो दिन ना आए कभी। देखो हुसैन, मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते। देखो हुसैन, तुमको खाना भी फ़िज़ा खिलाएगी अब, और सवेरे वही मुँह धुलाएगी अब। तुम जहाँ जाओगे साथ जाएगी वो, साथ माँ की तरह वो निभाएगी अब। पालेगी अब वही, जिद ना करना कभी। खुश रहोगे तो माँ को भी होगी खुशी। देखो हुसैन, मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते। देखो हुसैन, दिन वो आया कि जब चल बसी फातिमा, माँ की मैयत पे शबीर ने दी सदा।
अरे तुम बुलाओगी तो पास आऊंगा मैं, टूटे बंदे कफन फातिमा ने कहा, आ जाए मेरी जान तुझ पे कुर्बान माँ। जब हुसैना के लिपटे तो बोली ये माँ, देखो हुसैन मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते, देखो हुसैन। ए रज़ा और ज़ीशान दिल थाम लो, रोके शबीर कहते थे अम्मा सुनो, देखो तुमने बुलाया तो मैं आ गया, जब बुलाऊंगा आओगी वादा करो, माँ ने वादा किया बेटा चुप हो गया। जब जनाजा उठा फिर ना आई सदा, देखो हुसैन मेरे हुसैन, ऐसे नहीं कहते, देखो हुसैन। बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
Jazakallah khair, Brother Faizan. One more loud salawat for him. At this time, I'd like to invite Brother Shaji for recitation with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु। एक और मिलके दुरूद पढ़ दीजिएगा। एक कली का तज़किरा सारे चमन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा सारे चमन का तज़किरा, फातिमा का तज़किरा है पंजतन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा सारे चमन का तज़किरा, हल्लता से फातिमा ज़हरा ये साबित हो गया, हल्लता से फातिमा ज़हरा ये साबित हो गया, अर्श पर भी है तेरे घर के चलन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा सारे चमन का तज़किरा, अर्श वाले अर्श पर जाए तो हैरानी है क्यों, अर्श
अर्श वाले अर्श पर जाएं तो हैरानी है क्यों, असल में महराज है सैरे वतन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा, सारे चमन का तज़किरा। खाने काबा है खुद ममनून एहसाने अली, खाने काबा है खुद ममनून एहसाने अली, बाप होकर कर रहा है बुत शिकन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा, सारे चमन का तज़किरा। उस कदर सुलह हुदैबिया समझ में आएगे, उस कदर सुलह हुदैबिया समझ में आएगे, आम होगा जिस कदर सुलह हसन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा, सारे चमन का तज़किरा। इब्तिदा शब्बीर जिसकी और ज़ैनब इंतहा, इब्तिदा शब्बीर जिसकी और ज़ैनब इंतहा, करबला दरअसल है भाई बहन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा, सारे चमन का तज़किरा, एक कली का तज़किरा। बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु फातिहा। पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु दुनिया से आज रहलते बिन्ते रसूल, दुनिया से आज रहलते बिन्ते रसूल, दस्ते अजल में इस्मते कुबरा का भूल, कब्रे नबी लरसती है यसरब मलूल, हसनैनो मुर्तज़ा से विदाए बतूल, हसनैनो मुर्तज़ा से विदाए बतूल है। पट्टे से लग के ज़ैनबो कुलसूम रोती है। इस कमसिनी में बच्चियां बेमाँ के रोती है। इस कमसिनी में बच्चियां बेमाँ की होती है। ज़ैनब के हाल ये है कि आंसू तो है रवा, कुलसूम को भी देती हैं पे हम तसल्ली। फरमा रही हैं छोटी बहन से के मेरी रहती नहीं जहाँ में हमेशा किसी रहती नहीं जहाँ में हमेशा किसी की माँ। बेबस थी हमको छोड़ के गिरियाँ चले गई। अल्लाह ने बुला लिया अम्मा चले गई। अल्लाह ने बुला लिया अम्मा चले गई। ज़ैनब की भूली बातों पे मुस्तर थे मुर्तज़ा। अस्मा से बच्चों को गले से लगा लिया। अस्मा ने बच्चों को गले से लगा लिया। चुप के खड़े थे लाश की बाली पे मुश्तबा, और सर रखा था कदमों पे माँ के हुसैन का, और सर रखा था कदमों पे माँ के हुसैन का। सब रो रहे थे देख के मैयत बतूल की। दुनिया से उठ रही थी निशानी रसूल की। दुनिया से उठ रही थी निशानी रसूल की। मैयत के पास बैठ के बोले ये मुर्तज़ा, बच्चों संभालो दिल को के ये सब्र की है। अब एहतमाम करना है मैयत के गोश्त का। अस्मा के साथ सहन में जाओ पिदर, अस्मा के साथ सहन में जाओ पिदर। तामील हो वसीयते बेन्ते रसूल की। अंजाम दें हम आखिरी खिदमत बतूल की। अंजाम दें हम आखिरी खिदमत बतूल की। अल्लाह के इतने जुल्म हुए हैं बतूल पर, थर्रा रहा है कर्ब से तारीख का। रोते तड़पते गुजरी है बीबी की उम्र भर। महशर हर एक शब थी, क़यामत हर एक सा। महशर हर एक शब थी, क़यामत हर एक सहर। शहज़ादी कैसे ज़ख्मों की तेरे दवा करूं, आंसू बहा रहे हैं गुलाम, और क्या करूं, आंसू बहा रहे हैं गुलाम, और क्या करूं। दुनिया से आज रहलते बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
Jazakallah khair Anjuman and Shaykh Khada. One more loud salawat for them. Brothers and sisters, just a few announcements before inviting Shaykh to the member. First and foremost, Shaykh Hilli, Jazakallah khair, and a big thank you from the CFK and Dallas community for accepting our invitation once again. We are blessed to have your presence here during these holy nights. And inshallah, we hope to see you in the future for more events, more majalises and lectures. For the safety and well-being for Shaykh Hilli and his family, please recite a loud salawat. Just a reminder that the City of Knowledge has teamed up with the Who is Ascend organization for another blood drive, which is going on outside. If you have not signed up, please talk to Brother Hussein Rizvi or Samina Mazhar. The goal is to book 60 donors in total. Reminder that tonight, after the program at CFK, there is a Dallas youth event at Brother Akbar Rizvi's residence for the ages of 15 through 26 with Shaykh Hilli. The topic will be Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. Before I invite Shaykh to ascend the member, please let's recite a Surah Fatiha for the sponsor for tonight's Niyaz, for the families of Marhum Mushaf Ali Mir, Marhuma Mushaf, Marhum Zegam Ali Shah, and the Marhumin of the Mir family, Marhum Ahmad Ali, son of Hussein Qasim Ali, and the Marhumin of the Kanani family. There are a few pamphlets left over that Shaykh Hilli has brought for the night prayers. They are outside. If you'd like one, please take one on the way out. At this time, I'd like to invite Shaykh Hilli to ascend the member to address the Mu'mineen and Mu'minat tonight. And please move forward as close to the member as possible with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلقه وخاتم أنبيائه وسيد رسله، سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين، الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls, the enlightening of the hearts, the acceptance of the deeds, and for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Enlighten your souls, purify the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected elders, sisters and brothers, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Should the hijab be enforced? A question that many around the world are now asking in many different quarters. For you recognize, due to political events in certain places in certain countries, the subject of hijab has once again been under the spotlight around the world, but especially in the Western countries. And the recognition that today the conversation is not only about whether hijab should be worn or not, but whether anyone should force anyone to wear it or not. Because sometimes parents have this conversation with their youngsters. The youngsters will come forward and say, do I have to wear the hijab? What happens if I say that I don't want to wear the hijab? Do parents have the authority to enforce the hijab? Does an Islamic country have an authority to impose the hijab on its residents? This is a subject which is sensitive, no doubt. It's a subject which is controversial in many different quarters, in many different settings. But it highlights the delicate nature of many conversations that are taking place around the world today, in the idea that these conversations can be discussed with the utmost respect, at the same time in an academic way, whereby evidence is presented with regards to what is the position of the religion of Islam. And sometimes the position of the religion of Islam is not one-dimensional. There are discussions within circles, and discussion between ulama, and discussion between different denominations and different madhahib regarding some elements within the teachings of the religion of Islam. Therefore, there needs to be, at the same time, the acceptance or the willingness to hear the other side. In other words, today, there are people who have developed this unfortunate insensitivity to many things that they disagree with. Sometimes you feel that they've grown up with a feeling or a belief. Someone comes and challenges that notion. All of a sudden, it's World War III. All of a sudden, they begin to struggle to accept that particular individual. All of a sudden, they put a cross on that particular individual. At the same time, there's a need to have a degree of tolerance when it comes to discussions which are sensitive and controversial. The member of the Ahlul Bayt is a member in which the Ahlul Bayt tackled all kinds of difficult conversations, difficult topics out there. Ideally, it should be one in which people are able to learn and indeed further their understanding and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Someone asked the question, what should the lecture from a mimbar seek to achieve? What should it seek to do? Yes? Because today you have many different variations of majalis and lectures. You have many different presentations given out there, right? There are people who expect from a majlis something that will make them feel good. No doubt, there is, yes, an indication in the minds of people that they want the WI that happens. What's the WI? In some places, it's called the wah-wah indicator. That it means how many times, I feel so good about what has been mentioned. There's nothing wrong with that. Yes, there are people who enjoy that kind of presentation. Yes. There are others who say what? No, I want the NI indicator. Yes, that's the Nare Haidari indicator. There are many different ways in which people assess a majlis or a lecture or an examination over a particular topic. The answer is given to us by the Ahlul Bayt. One of the earliest majalis ever held during Islamic history. Someone asks you this question in a quiz maybe. One was the first majalis held in Islamic history. That is indeed the one that was held by the fourth Imam, Zayn al-Abidin as-Sajjad, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That was at the courtyard of the wretched Yazid ibn Muawiyah, because Yazid did not want Imam alayhi salam to speak. Imam said, let me speak. Let me deliver a sermon. Yazid said, no, I know, because if you speak, you will indeed put us all in a negative light. You will not leave people with any doubt about what we have achieved, what we have done. But Imam alayhi salam eventually is able to speak. When he is able to speak, he says to him, to this wretched man, he says, allow me to give a sermon, because the sermon will achieve two things. It will be something Allah is pleased with, and it will benefit the masses. Imam alayhi salam highlights the key criteria for a majlis. For a lecture, it should be something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. But at the same time, people are able to benefit from it. Today, many parents are struggling. They say, our kids ask us difficult questions. We don't know how to answer these questions. A 9-year-old comes forward to her mother. May Allah bless the mothers out there. Wallah, the mothers, the fathers, the struggle out there for parenthood is not an easy one. Yes, I know. Most of us who, alhamdulillah, have our parents still alive, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all the parents out there. We have these conversations with our parents. They tell us our time was tougher than your time. And there's that debate. Which one is harder, to be a parent in 2022 or a parent in 1990? Yes. There is an argument that today there are more challenges because of the internet, because of the availability of resources which may put question marks in the minds of people, especially children. If a child who's 9 comes forward to her parents and say, I don't want to wear the hijab. I'm not convinced about the hijab. I don't think the hijab is wajib. What should the parent do at that moment? Because they may turn to what the media is saying today about hijab in certain places, in certain Muslim countries, and say, you know what? Should the hijab be enforced? Because parents today may have developed an idea about parenting when it comes to certain principles within the religion of Islam, which may not conform to Islamic teachings. I tell you, like what? They may say, you know what? Let them decide. I'll give them freedom. They can choose. They can choose to pray. They can choose whether they want to wear the hijab. They can choose whether to fast. They can choose whatever they want, because it's freedom, it's choice, right? The concern that indeed today we have is that there are loads of mixing of ideas and people are indeed confused. Therefore, this subject of hijab is not a subject only for females, for example. It's not a subject only for certain individuals who wear the hijab. It's a broad subject that's today at the forefront of the discussion in many different places, no doubt. It is not only regarding the enforcement of hijab. Should people be coerced to wear it or not? As a parent, should I make my 10-year-old wear hijab or not? But rather also on the international scene. Similarly, there are people today struggling with the idea that, for example, there is hijabophobia. What does that mean? Those who adhere the hijab may be subject to discrimination. In the United States, in the Pew study, 65% of Muslim women who wear the hijab said we have been discriminated against in a survey, yes? The recognition is there are people who say that today the hijab is under attack in many different corners, in many different quarters. Similarly, you have the discussion regarding the rise of what's known as hijabi influences. Yes, on social media, mashallah, every day a new one emerges which acquires 400k followers on Instagram. And all of a sudden, they are what? They are a role model for people. And subhanallah, many of them, after a while, they make a sensational clip. I have decided to take hijab off. Inspiration. Yes, I have now decided that hijab is no longer for me. It's my choice. I'm not influencing you. Yes, I have 1 million followers. I'm not an influencer per se, but I'm telling you I could take it off because it's my choice, yes? This has posed a question out there today, and that is the discussion regarding hijab is taking many different, indeed, turns. Let's look at this in the most academic of ways and answer a number of key questions regarding this particular discussion. What is the argument of scholars who say in an Islamic country only, hijab should be not forced? What is the argument of scholars who say in an Islamic country hijab should be forced? What is a difference between the concept of hijab in a Muslim country and its enforcement and in the Western world, in a non-Muslim country? How does the discussion in hijab today differ from the discussion 10 years ago? And at the same time, how do we help with our tips that should be presented for parents when it comes to this important responsibility of ensuring that hijab is presented in the best possible way towards the children. But finally, of the utmost importance, how do we recognize the inspirational role model of Sayyidatun Nisa, Fatima al-Zahra al-Batul, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha? When it comes to the Islamic dress code of modesty and chastity. Today, there are scholars who will come and tell you, and let's raise the discussion in a bit of an academic way. There are those who would come and tell you from within the school of Ahl al-Bayt, no doubt, and outside the school of Ahl al-Bayt, Muslim scholars will tell you hijab should never be forced under any circumstances or under any setups. You say to them, why? What is the reason that you have? What are the evidence that you have? He says, they say, the evidence that we have is this: freedom. Human beings are being created free by Allah. They can choose whatever they wish to do. Look around the world today. The values of freedom and liberty are something sought for. Everybody talks about the importance of being free, not coercing anybody. You cannot and should not, they say, make anybody do anything that they don't wish, because they're free to choose what they want to do. Do you agree? That is what they're saying as the first argument. They say this is supported in Islamic teachings. Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Narration says, he says, لا تكن عبدا لغيرك ولقد خلقك الله حرا. Don't be a slave to anyone, and Allah has created you free. Yes. The third holy Imam, Sayyid al-Shuhada, the master of the martyrs, Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. On the day of Ashura, when we recite the Maqtal, what do we hear? We hear that when those wretched individuals attacked his family, when he was fighting, he turned around and said, Ya Shi'ata Ali Bani Sufyan, in lam yakun lakum deen, وَلَا تَخَافُونَ الْمَعَادِ فَكُونُوا أَحْرَارًا فِي دُنْيَاكُمْ. He says, O Shia, of whom? The family of Abu Sufyan. If you do not have religion and you do not fear the day of judgment, then be free in this world. They say, listen, the Ahl al-Bayt have said, the value of freedom, latch onto it. Human beings are being created free by Allah. Allah wants freedom. Who are we to enforce it? That's the first argument. So far, we're okay, yes? The second argument, they say, for their belief that hijab should not be forced on anyone, is that the Quran says, La ikraha fi ddeen. Famous ayah, most of you have memorized, yes? In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 256, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there is no compulsion in religion. How many times has this ayah been used in discussions regarding this? This ayah is one of the most often used verses of the Quran to illustrate that nobody should coerce anyone or make anyone do anything. Similarly, there is another ayah in the Quran, and there are a few similar. For example, in Surah Kahf, chapter 18, verse 29, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whomsoever wishes to believe, let them. Whomsoever wishes to disbelieve, let them. Why are you forcing something on people? That's the understanding that some of the scholars say. That's number two, yes? They say that the Quran does not support this compulsion. Number three, the evidence they present is this. They say, let's say you force someone to wear the hijab. What happens? They'll begin to hate it because it goes against what they believe, or they're doing it because they're forced. This will harbor hypocrisy, dichotomy. People will wear it just because they have to, and eventually they will become so distant away from religion because they're not interested in religion, and you are making them do something they're not interested in. Therefore, it goes against logic. Three evidence. You know the three evidence? Sounds quite convincing, right? Is there a rebuttal for this? Is there an answer from the other side? Yes. Ulama have come forward, some of the scholars have come forward and have given quite strong answers to these particular ideas regarding hijab and its coercion. One of them is His Eminence Ayatollah Sayyid Munir Khabbaz, who's one of the most senior scholars and students of His Eminence Ayatollah Sistani Hafidhahullah in Najaf al-Ashraf, a well-respected scholar. He has come forward and said, I will look at each and every one of these What points? Let's look at, he says, what? Let's look at the first point, freedom. He says, when someone tells you freedom, what do you understand? What is freedom? What is it? He says, let me define what Islam says there is, what freedom is. He says, freedom is of two kinds. There is a freedom known as al-hurriyatu tabi'iyya, personal freedom, yes? And there is what is known as al-hurriyatu al-ijtima'iyya, societal freedom. He says you must distinguish between these two. Please pay attention, because you'll be able to understand a little bit deeper the nuances and the discussion regarding this sensitive topic. He says, let me explain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created everything, yes? And for every creation, He has given specific freedoms. For example, a rock exists, but can a rock run away? Can it decide, you know what, I'm free, I want to run away? Can it do so? Usually not. Unless, sadly, you look at some literature that we have, such as Sahih Bukhari, which says one day, Bani Israel said to Allah, Ya Allah, we want to see Musa having a shower. But he doesn't let us, so please answer our dua. So they say that he placed his clothes on a rock. He went into the lake. All of a sudden the rock started running away with his clothes. So he came out of the water saying, how dare you run away with my clothes? He ran after the rock. He caught it and started beating it, saying, why are you running away with my clothes? Bani Israel said, Alhamdulillah, our dua has been answered. They lived happily ever after. That doesn't happen in real life, yes, in the idea that the rock doesn't normally run away, yes, in the idea that even if it wants to, doesn't have that freedom to do so, because Allah hasn't given it that freedom. Do you agree? Similarly, a plant. Can a plant start walking? No, it can't, yes. An animal. Can an animal decide not to have desires? Says, no, I don't want to have desires. No. It's not something that the animal has the ability to do. It's not given for the animal. A human being, today, human beings, as human beings, we also have limited freedoms. Can I decide, after I have, for example, a wonderful meal, that I don't want my body to absorb it? I make the intention that I'm telling my body, do not digest the food. Qurbatan ilallah. Can I do that? I don't have that freedom. Can I decide tomorrow in Dallas, I don't want the sun to rise, please? Listen, I have freedom. Allah has given me freedom. I can do whatever I wish. No. As a human being, you have certain freedoms. But no doubt, your freedom is limited. Now that's what? That's the personal freedom. Societal freedom, what is that? He says societal freedom is what? Is the law that the society, a country, comes forward and limits when it comes to human beings doing certain things. For example, if, for example, you come here in Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, you come and you see at the immigration it says no recording or no usage of the phone. You say, I have freedom. I'm a citizen of this country or I'm a visitor. I want to use my phone. They'll come and tell you, excuse me, no, it's against the law. But you say, no, you are going against my freedom. I am a human being who has a choice. No, you don't have a choice. You live under the law of the land. You respect the law of the land. Do you agree? Yes. In some countries, many countries, walking outside without clothes on, is that allowed? Of course not. You'll be arrested. Yes. You'll be put in the prison. Yes. Hold on, but it's my freedom. Why are they telling me I have to wear clothes? They're going against my hurriya, my freedom. Yes. He comes and says, the problem we have is that we have mixed the notion of personal freedom and societal freedom. Yes. He says societal freedom is dictated by the law of the land, and the law of the land decides it based on the interest of the people. Right? At the end of the day, there is a reason, he says, that a Muslim country may make hijab something that needs to be worn due to the need of the society. That's something we will discuss. Yes. Why would a Muslim country dictated by Islamic law need to do this? But I ask you, if someone wants to do whatever they want in their own home, are they able to in a Muslim country or a country dictated by Islamic law? Yes. You can do whatever you want. Not wear hijab, be whatever you want, plus, those people, yes. Whatever you wish, inside your house, nobody can mess with you. Nobody can come and say, oh, no, wait. Why are you drinking inside the house in a Muslim country? No one. You have your personal freedom inside your house. The moment you step out, though, now it's part of society. Now your personal freedom is curtailed. It's limited everywhere around the world. Is there such thing as absolute freedom? There isn't. So there's who are out there in the world today that why, for example, in Qatar, World Cup, there are certain people, they can't do this, they can't do this. Wait. Don't latch on to the bandwagon of the media and what's trying to tell you. Yes, there are limitations and restrictions everywhere around the world. They have limitations, yes. And therefore, this must be understood. Now, someone comes and says, okay, fine. I now understand there's a societal freedom. What about the verse that says there is no compulsion in religion? How can we say to people, hijab is wajib, or you must wear the hijab? The Quran says, don't force people. What's the answer to that question? That's because we have not understood the Quran properly. There are 3 interpretations of this ayah from major ulama, yes? Number 1, Allama Tabatabai. He says, La ikraha fi din means that you can never force something in the hearts of people if they're not convinced. You can never change the hearts of people by force. If somebody has got an idea in the heart and I come and use force, I can never change their heart. They may do it outwardly, but I cannot transform what they believe inside their heart. It's just there, right? So whatever force I use, it will never make a difference as far as their heart is concerned. That is what it means as La ikraha fi din. Because he says deen is what exists in the heart. That's the first interpretation. The second is by Ayatollah al-Shaheed al-Sa'id Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh. One of our great ulama and martyrs. What does he say? He says, La ikraha fi din has to be understood by the fact that there is a next part to it. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. That it is very clear what is truth can be distinguished from falsehood. He says, if only Islam was allowed to be spread and to be disseminated to people freely without manipulation and fabrication and distortion, then there will be no need to use any force. It's like a statement saying, if only I had this, then I wouldn't need to do this. Yes? It's a general statement used sometimes. People say, you know what? If, for example, I was able to have more wealth, I would not buy this product. For example, yes? You say it as a presumptive sentence. Yes? I'll give you an example. There was a debate once I saw when I was traveling between 2 brothers. One was Iraqi and the other was from Pakistan, India. And they were debating which chai is better. Iraqi tea or, this Desi chai tea. Yes? And I saw this, interestingly, discussion, one is saying this. I said to the Iraqi brother, don't say Iraqi tea, say Iraqi sugar with a bit of tea in it. As an Iraqi, I can say that, yes? In the recognition that this discussion was taking place. Now imagine, yes, this particular idea can be applied here. If one of them said, allow me and don't distort what I'm trying to say, or, yes, give me enough time and ability, I will prove to you that my chai is better. For example, yes? Ayatollah Sadr says, the problem is people don't allow Islam to be presented in the right way. So, what? So the Quran is saying, La ikraha fi din, qad tabayyana ar-rushdu min al-ghayy. It's very clear what is truth from what is not. Yes? If it is allowed to be disseminated. That's the second opinion. The third opinion of what La ikraha fi din is a popular one. Many mufassirin have this. And that is you can never force a non-Muslim to become a Muslim. If a person is a Christian, a person is a Jew, a person is a Hindu, a Buddhist, an atheist, an agnostic, whatever. You can never force anyone to become Muslim. La ikrah. Do not force them to become a Muslim. Now, what is interesting, that's it. That's the understanding of La ikrah fi din. It's not to do with the application of religion. It's to do with the acceptance of religion. And there's a big difference. There is a big difference. What do ulama say? La ikraha fi din does not apply to those who are already Muslims. But I thought it does. I thought the idea is nobody can compel. No. The moment you have submitted to Allah and have embraced the religion of Islam, you're part of what? You're part of a community that has adhered to the teachings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to follow. Number 2. Number 3, what about this idea of what? Oh, but you know what? this may develop and harbor hypocrisy or people not necessarily doing it properly and so on and so forth. The idea that emerges here is we have to answer this question. Why would a Muslim country force hijab anyway by its laws? There are many discussions out there, very briefly, so that we can go to elements that apply to our lives. The reason given is that there are two major roles for an Islamic country. Yes? Number one, protection from corruption, and number two, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. In a Muslim state, yes, they come and discuss. They say, how can we avoid immorality? How can we reduce that which causes the deterioration of the ethics of people? Yes? And so they come to a conclusion that in order to do this, we feel that the Islamic dress code of modesty and chastity as part of the law, which is societal freedom, needs to be observed. This is our law. This is our understanding of Islam. That's how it is. Because we feel that is part of enjoining the good, forbidding the evil. Question: did the Prophet or Ahl al-Bayt force hijab? Someone will ask you this question. Yes? They'll tell you, do we have any evidence that any time the Prophet came and said to somebody, wear hijab right now, otherwise? Is there such a evidence? No. But does that mean anything? No. Because the Prophet and the Ahl al-Bayt never encountered people who didn't wear hijab. So how can you use that as evidence when we don't have the contrary? Do we have evidence that the Prophet saw someone in Medina not wearing hijab and saying, no problem? We don't. Do we have evidence that Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam al-Hasan, alayhim salam, only those, because they were able to rule, or given their right at least, yes, to rule for certain periods, yes? Did they witness people who were not observing the hijab and were silent about it? No. So we cannot argue that either, yes? And therefore the recognition that emerges in this particular discussion is there needs to be a nuanced look at this. There needs to be an understanding that there are, different opinions. Don't latch on the bandwagon of anyone who comes and tells you immediately the first thing that indeed clicks with your mind. Yes, we can't. No, it should not be. This is not Islam. That's not the Islam I know. Wait, there's much more deeper discussions that are going on. Ayat of the Quran need to be understood in a different way. Therefore, the next area of discussion is what? The discussion with regards to forcing hijab is different in an Islamic country to a non-Muslim country. What do you mean? This discussion that I just presented, it only applies to a law of a land in a Muslim state, in a Muslim country. Doesn't apply necessarily to people living in this country or in the Western world. Question here is, what should parents do when it comes to their youngsters who are refusing to wear hijab? Before we are able to present a discussion on this, I need the mu'mineen, the sisters and brothers, to understand the term. It's discussed in psychology, it's discussed in behavioral therapy, it's discussed in a number of different disciplines. It's called cognitive dissidence. Please understand what this means, because it's rising within the Muslim community in the Western world. Cognitive dissidence is when an individual is torn inside and they begin to develop difficulty to express their faith because of confusion and double standards in their eyes. Because of influences that are external. How is this applicable to the subject of hijab? Today, in the Western world, there is a repainting of the whole discussion of hijab. There is a redefinition of what hijab is. If you compare what people today are saying what hijab is to what Islam says hijab is, you'll see a disparity. It's growing. It's growing wider and wider. What do you mean? Today, if you ask many of our sisters, for example, may Allah bless them, may Allah reward them, may Allah, inshallah, shower them with mercy and indeed blessings for adorning the Islamic dress code of modesty and chastity, and it's not easy. Wallah, it's not easy. I know for a fact that it's so difficult due to the looks, due to the discrimination, due to all the other things, the pain they may go through. That we have to indeed say at the beginning. But someone asks them, why do you wear hijab? Immediately, a lot of people will say, innocently, it empowers me. It gives me strength. It's a matter of identity. It is something which is what? It's something which gives me a good feeling. Do you agree? There is that trend going on now. You put it on Google, on YouTube, you'll see. This is, at the surface, okay. No problem. Someone says, I'm empowered by hijab. I feel good when I wear hijab. It gives me break of the chains of what? Of all the other kind of slavery that exists. Okay, that's good. But that's not the answer Islam wants you to give. There's a redefinition of hijab today. You ask them, what is going on out there with regards to the way that sometimes some of our sisters who are hijabi presenting themselves in social media to draw the attention of people. Some hijabis going on Vogue magazine and Rogue magazine and all the other magazines, yes, doing catwalks and doing all this fashion, modest hijab industry that's worth more than $300 billion around the world in 2023. What is happening out there? There's nothing wrong with that industry as far as if it adheres to the Islamic definition of what hijab is, yes? As far as what hijab is. But deeply, deeply, what is going on? There is a concerted effort today to redefine what hijab is. What is it that Islam wants us to recognize what hijab is? What should be the answer universally by every sister who wears the hijab? Why do you wear it? Because God told me to wear it. That's it. What? Really? I prefer the empowered. No. Because the discussions later that will follow, I can be empowered through other things. I don't need empowerment through hijab. I can have an identity through my other things. I don't need hijab to give me an identity. There is always a way. Wallah, the only answer to why Islam says, yes, Islam says that, for example, the subject of homosexuality. Yes, I know we can't talk about it much, but it's simple. Someone asks you why. What is the answer? We say, because Allah says, no. That's it. You go down the route of genes and this and that and no. It's our faith. God has said no. That basic sounds basic, but it's missing. It's missing in the world today. There is a redefinition. Therefore, what's going on out there? As a result of this kind of movement to reshape what the whole Islamic concepts are that exists, you'll find that people are struggling to adhere to it. Because cognitive dissonance means what? People come forward and say, I'm a Muslim, but hijab is not wajib. I'm a Muslim, but it's okay to be gay. I'm a Muslim, and it's okay this. So they're torn inside, because there is what? There is this kind of confusion of concepts. There is the mixing of so many different ideas, and they're trying to justify it for themselves because the world is telling them it's okay. It's okay. Redefine it. You can be a Muslim the way you like. No one should judge you. You can define what Islam is, they'll tell you. You can practice the way you want. Surely no one should tell you how to practice. How many times we've heard this recently, yes? It's silent, soft power. I mentioned it yesterday. Silently being thrown out there. And you find our youth, and some of them are coming forward with the idea that when it comes to the religion of Islam, I can define it, I can practice it, I can do it with the way I understand. Don't tell me how to practice my Islam. Don't judge me for this. Don't judge me. I'm not calling for people to be judged. But there is a big disparity between an individual identifying as a Muslim but not submitting to the will and the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the key. Question: does the Quran say you and I have a choice when it comes to hijab or not? Yes, it does. Say something. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. It is not for the believing men and women when Allah and His Messenger say something, they don't have a choice over it. Oh, so now you want to argue with the Quran? Bismillah. The Quran says you don't have a choice. The Quran says you are empowered already as a believer, as a Muslim. You have submitted to Allah. You follow the Prophet and the Ahl al-Bayt. That's it. That's it. Oh, but Maulana, I have my own conviction, the way I interpret Islam, with all respect, with all my full love and compassion and respect to each and every one of us, including me. Who am I to interpret Islam and Islamic law particularly? Who am I? What gives me the right and the audacity and the knowledge to be able to interpret and give rulings that this is halal and this is haram? It's a struggle, I know. It's tough. It's so tough. It's really painful. It's sometimes even, parents go through it, children go through it. It's a struggle all across the board. So, As much as salah is not free choice, hijab is not free choice. As much as siyam, fasting is not free choice, hijab is not free choice. Same. We're not having a distinction between them. Yes? Question. What about parents then? Now we've established this. There is what? There is a murky area, there is a dilution, and there is a distortion of the concept that exists out there today. You agree? They're trying to redefine what hijab is. Yes? Part of the feminist movement is trying to make this also something of a reality within the mindset of our sisters and our brothers. By the way, there's a lot of brothers out there, fathers, husbands, who are telling their wives, their sisters, their daughters, don't wear it. Subhanallah, the number of emails I get, the number of comments, I want to wear it. I feel it's something Allah wants me to present in the honor of these great ladies in Islam that gave their lives to hijab. I want to wear it. But my husband saying, no, I will divorce you. My father saying, I'll kick you out of the house. Tons of emails we get. What's going on? Yes? What is happening out there? Yes? And that's out of people coming to the conclusion that they can themselves, they have certain kind of autonomy when it comes to Islamic rulings. And unfortunately, that's been fed by some individuals. That's why we have to answer this question. What should parents do? This is a very drastic last port of call when it comes to this hijab discussion, when it comes to the youngsters. There needs to be a concerted effort to present hijab from a young age through a number of key tips. Please focus on this so that we can indeed make hijab something which is adored and practiced with conviction and love. That's the idea. There are a number of tips presented to us. Let's look at them. For a parent, when it comes to their daughter wearing hijab, for a teacher in madrasa, for a grandparent who wants to help their grandchild, for anyone out there who has a young daughter or who is going through a difficulty when it comes to them accepting the Islamic dress code of chastity and modesty. The first thing is, so many people start late. When the girl is approaching the age of taklif, 9, they begin to think about, what shall I do? Because they say otherwise when she's younger, that she's too young. Don't make her think about these things because she's still very young, Maulana. She's only 6, 7. I don't want her to know about these things. Wrong. Trust me, what they're being fed in this day and age at schools from the age of 4 is much worse than when you and I think. Yes. Much, much worse. Why should I not introduce Islamic concepts, beautiful concepts given to us by Allah, the Quran and Ahl al-Bayt from a young age, 5, 6. Start introducing it and be a role model for it. An exemplar for it, yes? Introduce it in the most beloved of ways, in the most attractive of ways. Attractive in the sense of what? Not the forceful, yes, idea that if you don't, this is the second point. Many a times when it comes to Islam and the way we present Islam, but especially Rabbil Alameen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes we present this very distraught, very angry God who will punish and will what? Will be ravaging. Someone said to me, what? Someone said, I cracked the way to make my daughter wear hijab. I said, how? Tell me tips. What have you done? He said, I use barbecue chicken. I said, really? What, do you give her some barbecue chicken when she wears the hijab? He says, no. I show her how it's made. And I say to her, if you don't wear hijab, Allah will barbecue you as well. I said, are you for real? Is this the way to present Islam to our youngsters and children? Is this to make them love God and respect God and be obedient to God? Yes. The sandals don't work. They used to work back in Iraq and Pakistan maybe. Yes. But they don't work in America. Yes. These kind of things may not be the conducive manner. We have to present a God which is loving, merciful, kind, compassionate, who wants to give us paradise, who wants to embrace, gives us that element of dignity of being a human being. And that must start from a young age. Must start from a young age, yes? Number 3, at the same time as this, please, this is the most delicate point. I have spoken about it here at CFK before, but I would like to repeat the next point that I mentioned. And that is, we need to harbor and inculcate what I call the culture and the spirit of taslim within our children from a young age. Taslim means what? Maulana, I want to play chess, but Ayatollah Sistani says haram to play chess. I want to know why, otherwise I'm playing it. I had about 3 questions of this in the last week or 2. If you don't tell me why he said it's haram, okay, I'll tell you because of 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20 narrations. But why? Why is the Prophet saying? Because it's gambling. Oh, but today is not gambling. I'm not using money. If you don't convince me, I'm playing. What has happened here? Children have been nurtured to believe I must be convinced for everything I do. If I'm not, then I won't do it. Who is responsible for this? Parents. 100%. Parents. Yes? Don't blame M&Ms. Madrasa and the mimbar is for what? For education and reinforcement of concepts. But parents have a responsibility. From a young age, they need to make their children understand that, listen, when it comes to aqa'id, belief, imama, nubuwa, adala, justice of God, tawheed, let's discuss, and you must never follow blindly. I have had kids come and tell me, I am not a sheep, Shaykh, I'm not a sheep. I have to know why I'm doing it. With all respect, it's okay sometimes to be a sheep. Like, what? It's okay because it's beyond us. It is something Allah says, listen, I know what's best for you. Don't get involved in this. But it's hard. I want to know why. Okay, come and study 50 years, then become a marja' mujtahid, bismillah. No one's stopping you. Yes? Come up with your own rulings after 50 years. I'm sure you can make it. But if you can't, you have to submit. You've got to submit. And this is a problem. I see it on social media. I see it on so many different places. For example, I post a lot of these clips on fiqh rulings. And the comments, I don't agree with you. You've made this wrong. I don't agree. I'm thinking, don't agree with me. It's not me. Yes? No, that's not Islam. But who defines what Islam is? Who? That's a big challenge. So from a young age, I need to make sure my child embraces that thought and that concept and delves into spirituality and akhlaq and belief and aqaid. Not waste your time as to, I will have to know why chess is haram. Otherwise, no. I will not accept it. You're wasting your time and effort and energy. Yes? Put it in the right sources. Put it in the right places. The parents have to lead by example in that particular regard. Similarly, another key tool that we have to use is do not dismiss their questions. There is one thing, if child asks about hijab or chess or whatever, there's one thing explaining to them and one thing closing them down and saying, don't ask. That's not for you to ask, etc. There is a way. Yes? There is an important methodology that must exist when it comes to dealing with children and their questions. So explain to them in the most loving way. And also, if they say, what is the evidence that it's wajib? Explain to them how it's wajib. Seek the answers as parents if you don't know, yes? Must ensure that they are not dismissed as easily. Similarly, it's so important that hijab is given the notion of tashrif, not taklif only. What's the difference in Arabic? Taklif means obligation. Tashrif means honor. You know when the girls at the age of 9, according to the opinion of majority of our fuqaha and maraja, they become, yes, baligh. And usually, in some cultures, which is a wonderful thing, they do a party for them. And they say this is a taklif party. I say call it a tashrif party. They're now being honored. They're now being specially chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now they're getting what? Now they're considered to be somebody who has responsibility, who has duties in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make it something that you support them all the time, yes? Make it something that is beloved through positive encouragement, positive emphasis, affirmation. That is what? That is constantly engaging. And the key element also in this particular regard is to provide them with inspiration from brilliant role models. No doubt. You know, my message to some of my sisters and brothers, and I'm a father too with a 7-year-old girl, so we're not talking things which are not applying to us too, yes, is to constantly solicit the help of those defenders of hijab for them to intercede to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you and your daughters. Sometimes we forget that, right? Sayyidatun Nisa Fatima, Sayyidah Zainab. These great ladies gave their lives for hijab, no doubt, yes? And we have to use them as role model as we will discuss. But I ask you, sometimes it's powerful to speak to them. I'm struggling, O Sayyida. You stood with the values of hijab. Your daughter, yes, was on the plains of Karbala with hijab that was taken away from her. I want help. Please. Yes, that conversation with these holy individuals, specifically those ladies in Islam, make it something important. But at the same time, what is needed is for our children to develop a bond and a relationship with these holy individuals. Because I tell you, children are very sensitive. They know when it comes to matters of the heart, they begin to develop a relationship, yes? When you harbor a relationship between them and Sayyida Fatima salamullahi alayha, or Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha, with, for example, Sayyida Fatima Ma'suma in Qom, for example, the mothers of the Imams, for instance, Sayyida Khadija, all these holy individuals, when you begin to tell them stories from their lives, how they were constantly wearing hijab, how in Karbala hijab was taken away and Sayyida Zainab would be heartbroken due to this, you'll find that the children will develop a sort of respect, and they will eventually be at the state where they think, I don't want to upset these people. At the very least. Yes? Because today there are some who say, Maulana, if I wear the hijab, some sisters I've had conversation, they'll say, if I wear the hijab, I'm not doing it for Allah. I'm just doing it because I don't want to upset Sayyida Zainab or Sayyida Zahra or my parents. So I don't think there's any point. Wrong. It's okay. Still wear the hijab. It's okay. You think you're not doing it for Allah. But the fact that you are doing it in order for these Ahl al-Bayt to be pleased with you is for the sake of Allah. These Ahl al-Bayt have been sent by Allah, yes, to save us, yes. The fact that you're respecting your parents is part of the teaching of the religion of Islam. Shaitan comes and tells you, no. Unless you have 100% ikhlas, sincerity, I'm doing it for Allah only. I'm not going to wear it until I'm convinced. Until I'm convinced. Subhanallah. Have you seen, those of you who have seen when it comes to, and I know the sisters have, but maybe, of course, the brothers would not have. But those who study in the Hawza and know, when it comes to a female and her body to be covered, the kafan is covered in 5 pieces. To make sure that what? Even when she's left this world, she's in hijab. Yes? There is a special hijab for her hair. It's not for the male. Yes, the male's body is covered, right? But the hair isn't. It's just something put on top. But for the ladies, there is this hijab. Even that. Because when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to be in that state of purity. And Allah tabarak wa ta'ala honors you. How amazing it is to have a conversation with the child. And to say what? The moment you adorn this Islamic... Today, just before coming here, I was answering a question on my website. Somebody said, I'm close to leaving hijab. I'm desperate. Help. I don't know why, but I don't like it anymore. I'm on the verge. Yes? I don't know what to do. I said to her this. I said to her, the moment you step out with the hijab, know that the malaika are so busy giving you thawab. Don't make them unemployed. Give them something to give you. Yes? Don't turn your back on something that Allah loves, that these holy individuals love. Yes? We need so much of these emphasis, but especially looking at how these honorable people would be the champions of the Islamic dress code of modesty and chastity. Yes? You asked me the question, Sayyidatun Nisa Fatima, Az-Zahra al-Batul, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. No doubt that most of us have heard about her hijab, but the conversation with regards to Sayyida is also one regarding physical and social hijab, no doubt. Yes, her hijab was exemplary. When she came to give the khutbah of Fadakiyya in Masjid al-Nabawi, the riwayat says the dress that she was wearing, the jilbab and the khimar, was so loose in her body that it was being dragged on the floor. People commented that it's dragged on the floor because it was what? Loose on her body. Similarly, what do we find? We find that once she was sitting next to the Holy Prophet of Islam, just by themselves, a father and a daughter. And all of a sudden, a blind man comes in. You know, sometimes people just go in. He's Abdullah bin Maktoum, blind. Sayyida immediately wraps herself. The Prophet knows, but he wants you and I to know, because otherwise we wouldn't know. And he says to her, why did you do that? Because he's blind. She said, oh my dear father, he can't see me, but I can see him. That extent. Yes. When it came to close to her martyrdom, she said to Asma bint Umays, she said, oh Asma, when a lady dies, they carry her coffin, the outer shape of her body shows. Is there a way to make this doesn't happen? Have you seen anything? She said, yes. oh my lady, when I was in Abyssinia, they used to have, yes, a taboot, a coffin, which is what? Completely covers the body and doesn't show the outer shape. She says, I want one of those. So they made for her. She was the first individual to use a coffin like this, where the outer shape of the body is not shown. Why is Fatima so eager, so keen for this? Yes, she has a responsibility. She wants to discharge this responsibility. But also she believes in it wholeheartedly. She understands that there is salvation in it. She understands that there is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it. It's there for a reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hakim. He's the wise. He knows why it is needed and necessary. With all respect to out there people who have their own ideas about how it should be practiced in the Western world, our ulama have said, as long as it fulfills very simple criteria, it covers the whole body except the face and up to the wrist. It's loose, it's not tight, and it doesn't draw attention deliberately. Khalas. And then it can take any other shape or form, cultural form, colors, whatever, as long as it meets that criteria. Yes? But the problem is today is that element of trying to shift it away from what Zahra al-Batul wanted. That we have to be wary of. That we have to remind ourselves of. And no doubt, not only Sayyida Fatima, but she indeed was the inspiration for those around her, especially her beloved daughter Zainab. Yes. We are told in narrations that when Amir al-Mu'mineen buried his beloved wife Fatima, she had asked him, oh my dear husband, when you finish the burial, recite Quran next to my grave. This was the request from Fatima alayhi salam in her will when she asked, bury me at night so these individuals will not take part. Don't disclose the location of my grave so that people will constantly ask, why? Why is the grave of Fatima hidden? And the other thing she said to him was, I want Quran recited next to my grave. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he buried his beloved wife Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, he began to recite the Quran. He began to recite these verses next to the grave of Fatima. Yes, how difficult it was for him to do so. All of a sudden, he had a very difficult time, yes. He falls asleep for a few minutes. In his sleep, he sees his beloved Fatima. She says to him, Ya Abul Hassan, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for reciting the Quran. Yes. How amazing the feeling, yes, when Amir al-Mu'mineen would be thanked by his beloved wife, whom he was desperately missing. But then she says something that breaks the heart of Ali. It breaks the hearts of the lovers of Ali and Fatima. She says to him, Oh Abul Hassan, Zainab is alone at home. She's just woken up. She's asking for her mother. Yes. Amir al-Mu'mineen wakes up, rushes towards the house, looking for Sayyida Zainab. Yes, look at the heart of Fatima. Even in Alam al-Barzakh, she's thinking about Zainab. She's asking Amir al-Mu'mineen, look for Zainab. Yes. Amir al-Mu'mineen had this in mind all throughout his life. Because after that moment where the La'een Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam strikes him on the morning of 19th of Ramadan, when he is bleeding and he's being carried by the Imams, he comes close to the house. He says to them, don't hold me. They say, why? He says, I want to enter the house without you so that my daughter Zainab doesn't get upset. Yes. Ali is worried about the heart of Zainab. Fatima is worried about the heart of Zainab. We ask them, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Sayyidatun Nisa, if only you saw what Zainab saw in Karbala. If only you witnessed what the tragedies that she witnessed on the plains of Karbala on the day of Ashura, the calamities, how many of them broke the heart of Zainab? How many of them indeed was something that put pain in the heart and the mind of the daughter of Ali and Fatima? Yes, whether the hijab being snatched away from them running from one place to another in that dark night, their clothes having caught fire, the children being whipped, the children being
lightning struck, the children running between the bodies of the martyrs. Yes, musibah after musibah. But you know, Sayyida Zainab, even when that moment, that difficult time of the children, the women running from those wretched individuals from the army of Umar bin Sa'ad who were on their horses after trampling on the bodies, you know what the narration says? Sayyida, every time she saw a piece of cloth, she would pick it up and cover some of the women. Yes, such was her care and concern about the hijab. The riwayah says that night of Sham Ghariba was the most difficult night for Aqilatu Bani Hashim, for al-Masa'ib Zainab. How is it difficult? Because you know, you've just lost your loved one. Anyone here who's lost their loved one, you want time to grieve, you want time to cry, you want time to be indeed consoled by others. But Zainab was not given any of this. Instead, she had to gather the family members who were crying and saying, where is my father? Where is my husband? Where is my brother? Zainab had to console everyone. Her concern was whether the children were okay, whether they needed anything. That night was so painful and difficult. That's why the riwayah says that she had no energy to stand and pray. Salatul Layl, she prayed while sitting down, but then she fell asleep for a few moments. According to the riwayah, when she was asleep, she wondered where was a daughter of Abu Abdullah. She looked around and that daughter wasn't there. She went outside to the plains of Karbala. That's the darkness of the night. She looked left and right, looking for that Yatimatul Hussein. All of a sudden, she finds a lady fully covered in chador, yes, fully covered, and she doesn't recognize that lady. She comes close to her. That lady was holding the yatim of Abu Abdullah. All of a sudden, Zainab becomes happy, you know. She says to her, oh lady, I will ask my mother Fatima to intercede for you on the day of Qiyamah. Yes. You have looked after Yatima of Hussein. This child was running after her father on the plains of Karbala. Thank you so much. That lady carrying the child puts the child down slightly, yes, then raises her head, looks at Zainab, says, Zainab, I am your mother Fatima. Yes. I am your mother Fatima, yes. Zainab, yes, begins to cry. Oh, mother Fatima, mother Fatima. The poet portrays this beautifully. He says, Zainab would say, it's as if she would complain and say, mother Fatima, which musibah shall I begin to tell you about? Oh, mother Fatima, we went through the worst of times over the last few hours. Oh, mother Fatima, I wish you were there to see when this baby Asghar was presented to me. The throat was slit with an arrow. I had to present the baby to his mother Rabab. Allahu Akbar, how difficult it was for Zainab. But you know, the poet says, maybe Zainab thought in her mind, oh, mother Fatima, now I can feel your pain when you lost Muhsin. Yes, because I can feel that child in my hand, that slaughtered baby in my hand. Mother Fatima, I wish you saw what I saw. The bodies of Awn and Muhammad were presented before me. But in what state did I see Awn and Muhammad? Yes, their bodies torn, they were attacked by the enemies. Oh, mother, I can't cry for them, mother. Then she says, Zahra, ya Fatima, if only you saw what they told me happened to my brother Abbas. They say the arrow hit his eyes and his arms are there on the plains of Karbala. They say they struck his head with a spear and he fell on the ground without his hands. Oh, mother Fatima, they trampled on the body of your Hussein. They broke the ribs of your beloved Hussein. Oh, Mother Fatima, Mother Fatima, there's a sight I will never ever forget. Oh, my dear Mother Fatima, that sight is when that la'in, wretched man, walked towards the body of Abu Abdullah. When my brother Hussein was still alive, I cried at him, oh Shimr, how dare you? But he sat on the chest of your Hussein. Mother Fatima, I know when you were crushed between the wall and the door, your ribs broke that moment. You called Rasulullah, you called your father. Mother Fatima, when that wretched man sat on the chest of Hussein, when he took out his dagger, your ribs broke once again. You cried once again, Wa Husayna. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين وإنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Ya Allah, for the sake of these tears, for the sake of these Ayyam al-Fatimiyah. Ya Allah, support our community, support our sisters and brothers, support the parents, the father and the mother, to be inspirations and to indeed guide our youngsters, our children, our beloved daughters towards hijab and the dress code of Fatima and Zainab, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we ask you and we beseech you to indeed protect the shrines of the Ahl al-Bayt. Allow us to see the day in which Jannatul Baqi is rebuilt again. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Ya Allah, give and grant shifa to all those mu'mineen and mu'minat who have requested that we remember them in dua. Raise your hands. These are special moments, you know, when you and I remember Ahl al-Bayt, these tears, when you remember the Masa'ib of Fatima, Babul Hawa'ij, they are all the gates of the fulfillment of wishes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's recite Ayatul Mubarakah 5 times for shifa of each and every mu'min and mu'mina who've asked us to pray for them. But even those, especially those that don't have anyone to pray for them, let's recite this together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 يا الله بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها يا رب العالمين. شافي وعافي مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات. اللهم تقبل أعمالنا يا Allah, the deeds and the actions of all mu'mineen and mu'minat who have helped establish this majlis, the organizers of this majlis, Ya Allah, accept from them, grant tawfiq to them. Those who have indeed sponsored these majalis, Ya Allah, bless them and their marhumeen. We dedicate the thawab of these majalis to the souls of all your marhumeen, and let's recite Suratul Mubarakatul Fatiha for all their souls, but before it, salawat. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है, अली की है ज़हरा तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा अली की हाय गम में तेरे जाती रही, हाय गम में तेरे जाती रही, बीनाई अली की तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है, हाय गम में तेरे जाती रही, हाय गम में तेरे जाती रही, बीनाई अली की तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तन्हाई अली की दरबार में जालिम के गई बिनते पैगंबर, क्या वक्त था कुछ कहना सका पाता है खैबर, हाय हंसते रहे गुर्बत पे तमाशाई अली की तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की दर जलता हुआ फातिमा ज़हरा पे गिराया, मोहसिन की शहादत का सबब बन गई दुनिया, हाय तस्वीर मुकम्मल नहीं हो पाई अली की तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की दर जलता हुआ फातिमा ज़हरा पे गिराया, मोहसिन की शहादत का बन गई दुनिया, हाय तस्वीर मुकम्मल नहीं हो पाई अली की तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा है, तन्हाई अली की ज़हरा की जुदाई को लगाए हुए दिल से 25 बरस मौला ने चुपचाप गुजारे, हाय एक हुजरे में कुल दुनिया सिमट आई अली की तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा तेरी तन्हाई है तन्हाई अली की। उस वक्त तकल्लुम वो ज़माने का वली था। सज्जाद जो ज़ैनब को लिए शाम से गुजरा, हाय इस्लाम को खामोशी बचा लाई अली की। तेरी तन्हाई है तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा, तेरी तन्हाई है तन्हाई अली की।
या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन। गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, 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 गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। क्या हाल ये उम्मत ने ज़हरा का बनाया है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। खातून कोई गम से यूं चूर नहीं देखी, ऐसे ही कोई दुनिया में मस्तूर नहीं देखी। 18 बरस में ही लगती जो ज़ईफ़ा है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। दरबार में जालिम ने की ऐसी पजीराई, किस तरह से तू बीबी फिर लौट के घर आई। बालों की सफेदी ने सब हाल सुनाया है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। तू रोती रही घर में हैदर से भी छुप छुप के, इस्मत की तरह दुख भी पर्दे में रहे तेरे। कुछ दर्द तेरे बीबी बस जानती फिजा है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। दो ऐसे जनाजे हैं तारीख में जो उठे, बस घर के ही लोगों ने दोनों को दिए कांधे। एक फातिमा ज़हरा है, एक बाली सकीना है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, गुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि
السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا رسول الله. السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك سيدتي ومولاتي فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا محمد الصبط الحسن المجتبى. السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، سيما سيدنا ومولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل مخرجه، وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره ومن المستشهدين بين يديه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين.